Good afternoon and welcome everyone. I'm Pastor Russ Yoke and you are listening to LunchBox Devotions. Thanks for being a part of my day. You know, sometimes when you're really trying to figure something out, the best way to figure a thing out is to simply begin from the beginning. So I'm going to do that in an extreme way today. I want to take you guys to the first book of Genesis. We're here in the first book of Genesis. We're in the first chapter, so we're at the beginning. In fact, it begins in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering above the waters. That sounds like that's just an introduction. Here's the beginning. There's something so incredibly important in that initial phrase that in the beginning the world was the deep, and that the Spirit of God was hovering above the waters. That almost sounds like a throwaway setting, but it isn't. You and I, we probably have a significantly different relationship with the ocean to what our ancestors had with it. When you and I think about the ocean, chances are you're thinking about the beach. Chances are you're thinking about sandcastles, warm weather, considering it's going to be kind of rainy and gray this week, according to the weatherman. We all might be thinking about bright and sunshiny, and maybe longing for a little bright and sunshiny. But when our ancient ancestors thought about the beach, they thought about something that was simultaneously essential to life, because that's where fish came from, that's where salt came from, and it's where important things came from. But at the same time, it was absolutely terrifying. It was unpredictable. It produced storms. There were tides. It rose, it fell. Sometimes there would be extreme tides, and there would be just unpredictability. And in fact, as far as the ancient world was concerned, the waters, the oceans, were terrifying. It's kind of amazing if you really think about the fact that so many of our ancient ancestors were people that relied on the water for their livelihood, many of whom were professional fishermen. Many of them didn't know how to swim, even the ones that lived at the beach and were professional fisher people. The reason for this is, the water was terrifying. It was uncertain. It was unpredictable. It did all of these things that made people magnificently uncomfortable. And so you may have read the book of Genesis, and now I want to bookend this. I want to move to the book of Revelation. There's this passage in the book of Revelation that's describing the New Jerusalem. What will life be like for those of us in this next world that we're going to be placed into? One of the descriptions of this world is that it won't have an ocean. Now, as a beach fan, I sort of read that with a great deal of trepidation the first few times I came across it. I like the ocean. I like the ocean because I like the beach. I like the seashore. I like picking up shells. I like the sound of gulls and shorebirds when they're not trying to steal my food. I like the experience of vacationing at the ocean. But of course, when our ancient ancestors were having all of this described to them, the absence of the ocean implied an absence of chaos. It implied an absence of struggle, an absence of strife, an absence of this great, universal, powerful force that bound everyone's lives together but could equally take that life away in a heartbeat, and there would be nothing you could do about it, whether it was a storm, whether it was a shipwreck, or whether it was drowning, or any one of a million different ways that the ocean can kill you. Sharks, you name it. The ocean can be very dangerous. So when the book of Revelation says the ocean is no more, it means chaos is no more. And that I read with a great deal of comfort and hope. I don't know about you right now, but as I look around the world that we're currently living in, deep in the middle of this coronavirus pandemic quarantine, the simple fact of the matter is we're surrounded by chaos. We're surrounded by chaos on all sides. The chaotic opinions of those that are trying to convince everyone to reopen everything because everything is fine. Those who are trying to convince everyone to keep everything absolutely closed because we're all going to die. And if you're anything like me, you try to make sense out of the chaos. And it is a very anxiety-inducing, nerve-wracking experience trying to sort data out of this vast hurricane of data and information, some of which is probably somewhat accurate, much of which is completely inaccurate, bits and pieces of which are completely accurate. And how do we know? We live in a world of chaos. But this quarantine hasn't caused us to live in a world of chaos. It's simply emphasized to us in a way that we notice that we live in a world of chaos. We've always, from the first chapter of Genesis, lived in a world where God had to intercede on our behalf to produce order out of chaos. And that's where we are today. If you go from the book of Genesis, the beginning, to the book of Revelation, the end, you can see the humanity's experience has been book-ended at either side. Chaos on the left, chaos on the right, God creating order in the middle for us by bringing us hope, by bringing us confidence, by bringing us assurance of His presence. So I say to you all right now, well, we are definitely in a stormy, hurricane-ridden time at the shores of our lives. If you're looking to the water to bring you peace, if you're looking to the chaos of this world to bring you comfort, it ain't gonna happen. I mean, you might latch on to an extreme position on the left or the right that makes you feel like your feet are underneath of you on hard, solid, dry ground, but boy, you start looking at the facts and you're going to realize they're awful slippery. Where can your peace come from? From nowhere in this world. This world is the ocean. Your peace comes from the Lord alone. Trust in God, believe that He's with you, and know that He loves you. So, ladies and gentlemen, from the beginning of time to the end of time, I say to you, the Lord continues to move over chaos and bring order into our lives through the grace, the peace, and the hope and the joy that we have in knowing that we have been bound to the very life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Nothing can take that from us. And the hope that we have in God and the knowledge that we have that He walks with us is our sure, certain, and only foothold in this world. I want to ask y'all a couple of questions. Just something to think about as you go through your week. The first question is simply this. When you consider all that is going on in the world right now, all of the sources of information, all of the data, all of the storm of it, how does that make you feel? How do you feel about that? My next question is, does delving deeper into the controversies of this world and delving deeper into all of the problems we're facing, does it make you feel more peace? And I guess the last question I have for you is simply this. In the midst of all of this chaos going on around us, how have you leaned on your faith to bring you peace that this world cannot? So if you can spend just a little time this week thinking about those things, I'd be really curious to see if you'd share anything with me in our comment section. Well, thank you for spending lunch with me. I hope to see you all next week, or better yet, see you Sunday at 10 a.m. on either our Facebook or our YouTube channel for our worship service. God bless. Hang around for the announcements. Thanks lots.